All right, everyone, the Washington Post is applauding Facebook's efforts at fact-checking, it's a sanitized version of corporate dystopia. It's like Brave New World meets 1984. It's sort of a synthesis of the two, with a little bit of Animal Farm sprinkled in here and there. It's like, no, we didn't end up in a communist dystopia. It's sort of more corporatized, oligarchic. It's sort of like robber barons on steroids, but tied with neoliberalism and proxy war imperialism. It's an interesting world we live in, not necessarily the best one that we could be building. Facebook has decided to oversee all of these different elections, and in partnership with, such unbiased firms as the SPLC, they've decided, well, we're going to basically sanitize what the users on Facebook are seeing with regards to these political events, these elections throughout the world. It's not just the United States and EU. It's all the other, like the Mexican election. I'm sure they're going to have fun with that. Now, let me ask you this. Can Facebook remain unbiased as an entity when it is a for-profit corporation who inevitably favors some policies over others? Is it possible for them to therefore look at an election in which you have two candidates? Let's simplify. Let's just have two candidates with very simplistic, rudimentary platforms. Almost like the 2016 election. I'm just joking. You have one candidate, they're like, hey, I want to tax big tech firms more. They make so much money. They do business here. In order to do business here in Venezuela or whatever, it doesn't matter where, we're going to have a 1% tax on their proceeds related to the proportion of their audience or the use that goes on within our borders. We're going to have them monitor that and give us money, or we'll kick them out of the country. And the other candidate says, no, it's a terrible idea. I want to give them tax incentives to expand here and put a server farm in. Do you think that Facebook is capable, as a rational, immoral actor, which is what a corporation is, it's self-preservation, but with no actual morality whatsoever. Corporations are not people. They're conglomerates run by people that tend to be far richer than their employees or certainly their users, their audience, the people who use their business. Let me ask you this. Is it possible for them to overlook the opportunity just to do a little manipulation there? Just if the election is close, they're like, oh, yeah, it's basically 50-50. All we have to do is, suppress this one political ad. All we have to do is make sure that story goes straight to the top and these other two never appear on anyone's news feeds, at least within that country. No one will even know what's going on. We're so opaque, it's like, nobody's ever going to catch us out. Zuckerberg goes in front of Congress and perjures himself. We now know that. Some people are chomping at the bit, I think, wanting him to go back. Although they've sort of let the issue go because, he's a rich bitch donor to all sorts of senators and congresspeople. He's like, yeah, I could form the Zuckerberg PAC right now, and I could pour $1 billion into it, literally flood the entire country with political ads. Don't tread on me. It's a very strange ethos that ZuckerSynth has. And then Diamond and Silk come along. They say they were mistreated. Facebook has now given an official apology to them because they were right. Their claim was correct. They were suppressed. At first it was claiming that they weren't. Oh, we didn't suppress anyone. We did literally nothing wrong. We don't even know what you're talking about. They try to make them look crazy. They refuse to discuss it with them in front of Congress. Diamond and Silk get rambled at and insulted by several people in Congress. It turns out all wrong. They were right. And they've had enough evidence of it, so Facebook had to go and say, oh yeah, whoops, we made a mistake. We actually did suppress your fan page without any actual reason. So see, they can't even follow their own rules coherently. Here's the problem. Let's say for a second. Let me suspend my disbelief. Let me pretend that I don't believe that Facebook will actually insert its own corporate bias into these elections. Let me express for a second the erroneous belief that the SPLC and Snopes and PolitiFact don't at least lie by omission on a political and regular basis. Even then, profit alone will corrupt this so-called fact-checking system regardless of the benevolence with which it's imposed. And it will be misused. A person, some random staffer, can misuse it. They'll ban this group and just hope that nobody talks about it. You get banned on Facebook. Let's say you have a really active page. I know Facebook is now like the third wheel of big tech. YouTube and Twitter have breezed past it. Facebook is now. I don't believe reports that it's still growing. Because, report years ago was that, oh yeah, they've got more users in the US than there are people in the US. Something is screwy here. It looks like these numbers have been inflated to play up to advertisers, to make it look like they're getting a return on their ad revenue, their ad cost, which is what Zuckerberg was making money off before he started selling everyone's data to China. You expect me, even if there's no intended bias, which is totally, I give you a 100% chance that there will be bias inserted into these elections. It's just the name of the corporate game. Let me ignore that though for a second. We have Zuckerberg perjuring himself. We have multiple instances where Facebook provably lied about its data gathering and about its data sharing. We've had the data given over to Chinese firms, which means the Chinese government as well. Do I trust a corporation that operates in that manner to administer sensitive political content and curate it without inserting its own bias in there? No, I do not. Here's the thing, it's a sanitized dystopia. Because the corporate media, I think some of them are on board with the concept because they want to censor like alt tech. They don't like us, we compete with them. Others have just been hoodwinked by the newspeak game of Facebook and similar firms. They're very good at branding. This is a corporation, a multi-billion-dollar corporation. It's just like Monsanto or anything else under the sun. Yeah, GlaxoSmithKline or whatever the fuck it's called now. It's the same fucking thing. It's just involved in happy little colorful emojis and you talking to your friends, so it's able to build a different brand image. Doesn't mean it's not just as abusive in the name of profit. And it really is about money. Facebook looks out for Facebook. Google looks out for Google. This is just all well and fine from the standpoint of capitalistic business association. It's very, very good, in fact, because if they don't look out for number one, which is themselves, they will die off as companies and be replaced by those that are more cutthroat. It's about making sure that we have some standards as a society with regard specifically to businesses that undergo business in such a way that it's a monstrous proportion of all human communication. We did this with phone networks years ago. We did this with cable. We've done this before. You can't just be kicked. You can't be kicked off of using a telephone. The telephone company can't say, we don't like your political views, we're not going to give you phone service. Unless it's something illegal, criminal that you're doing, or you're preventing others from using the service, akin to spam or criminal harassment, then you can't be kicked off your phone service. We need to apply the same ethos to groups like YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. That as long as, and I pointed this out on Twitter, which is funny. I used Twitter to talk about Twitter. It's like, it's one of those odd Inception sort of things. I pointed this out. Police services, for instance, public service, government administered, it's not civilian. They can put out warnings on Twitter to people who have signed up to their page locally. Oh yeah, there's an axe murderer on the loose. The USGS makes use of it. Politicians make use of it. So long as public figures and services utilize these to a great extent in order to warn people who probably don't have a landline phone, maybe don't even have cable. Yes, there's an earthquake impending. A tsunami is coming. There's been an emergency in the downtown. Everything's on fire. Don't get near it. As long as that's the case, they should be considered public utilities for U.S. use for U.S. individuals. They should be rendered into public utilities, not be fucking around with corporate propaganda inserted over political propaganda. They shouldn't be picking and choosing what is or is not fact. The fact is, the weird side of YouTube for years was never considered a threat by these people. Now all of a sudden they're like, oh no, there are tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists on YouTube saying things that aren't always 100% objectively true according to Snopes. So fucking what? It's entertainment. It's been entertainment. The average adult knows better. The average adult is capable of differentiating reality from falsity. And insofar as propaganda exists, it almost doesn't matter, and I'll tell you why, because you conduct propaganda too. This entire story is propaganda. It's taking a dystopian aspect of corporatism and giving it a family-friendly label and telling you it's necessary, despite the fact that this was never an issue before 2016. Because they didn't like the election results here, they didn't like the Brexit results, they made up a lie about Russia, KGB agents, Reds under the bed, we're back in the 1970s, spies are on your Facebook, and we have to stop them for you because you're a little peon. That's essentially what's happened, and it is a total fucking lie. That's about all. Peace out.